more into the degen terminology. We're going to get into this here in a second. We're going to start talking about it right now. We're going to talk about time frames. If you guys are actively using Thor, you know that we give trades on 4 different time frames: 15 minutes, 1 hour, 4 hour, and then 1 day. It just represents the amount of time that it takes for a single candlestick to open and close. People are trading down to the 1 minute and 5 second candles sometimes. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. And so when we start talking about time frames, it's a way for you to get a general sense of either micro movements, intraday movements, or macro movements. The further that you scale out when you're looking at the time frames, the bigger depiction that it will give you, the bigger moves that it will give you. The pump to Solana was something we called 2 months ago, and that took time to get to, and it also happened really quickly. And so when you're looking at some of these Thor signals and you're just now learning how to use it, patience really does come into play when you start talking about the macro moves. When I'm starting to talk about macro timeframes, I'm referring to the 4 hour and the 1 day timeframes. We will be rolling out access on the 1 week timeframe, but we just haven't yet. So we will though. We want people who are really actively trading, and the 1 week can get boring as shit, but that's where the huge pumps come in. So when you're looking at a time frame, you're looking at a chart and you understand that this is the time that it opens and this is the time it closes. People will trade specific time frame candles, and that's really going to be about your own strategy and your preference on how you like to trade. I mentioned earlier, and we're really building, I'm giving you a depiction of how I think personally and why it is that I trade the way that I trade. I don't have time. I'm on phone calls all fucking day, and then I have some semblance of a life now, and I don't want to be staring at charts all the time. I don't care about the day-to-day micro movements. I don't give a shit about a 2% pump. I could give a fuck less. That to me is no movement. I give a shit about the 1 day time, the 4 hour time. Trades that I'll enter and I'm happy to sit alongside for a few days, up to a few weeks. I'm still spot long from months ago, and I'm happy. I don't care if we pump 5%. I'm happy when we pump 15%. I'm getting closer to my take profit levels. But that's one of the things to really start focusing on as you're learning how to trade. Is it stressful for you to be trying to day trade? For a lot of people, the answer is yes. You're trying to capitalize on smaller movements and smaller trading ranges that sometimes don't go the right way. Now, for the 1 day and 4 hour, patience really comes into play on those, because they can take a long time to really hit those take profit levels or even hit the entry ranges. We were waiting for 6 months for Solana to hit $8. We had called it 6 months before FTX happened. I had such a fucking fat ass bag ready to deploy because I trusted Thor, and then I knew that it was mathematically likely. And so I waited and waited and waited, and it took a big old Black Swan event to get down to that range, but I had my orders set and I packed my fucking bags, and I still am sitting on a large portion of that Solana that I bought back then. So when we start talking about time frames, it is up to you on how you choose to trade. 15-minute time frames and 1 hour time frames, definitely more for the day or a few days. 4 hour in 1 week or 4 hour in 1 day, those are definitely longer term trades. So if you're a newbie and you're just now learning, we've covered a few of my personal recommendations. It's to learn the ropes via spot trading, and it's to use some of the higher time frames, really practicing that level of patience that it needs to let those come to fruition. And like what Young had just said, there's going to be a lot of times when you're going to challenge yourself, and you're either going to see a negative balance or you're going to see that you're in profit. You're going to want to either close it for a loss or take a small pump, or you're in profit and then it goes to where you're not in profit or negative, and you're going to say, oh, fuck, I need to close it. Patience. Patience is the biggest part of the psychological game when it comes to trading. Patience and risk management are the two things that you as a trader need to learn. That is the two things that Thor cannot do for you. We cannot control your emotions, but we have given you every tool that you need to take it the fuck out of it. So the importance of time frames, like Mode has stated here, is pretty much what I just talked about. It affects the amount of time that you have to enter a trade and how long it may take for the trade to potentially take profit levels. So one of the things that we see pretty often is when we say somebody like, oh, hey, we're trading this on the 15-minute chart. It does not mean that it's going to take 15 minutes for you to hit and then take profit. It's simply analyzing those 15-minute individual candles, and we'll go and we'll cover some of these in depth together. And it's using those candles to predict your trade. 15-minute candles and 1-hour candles, they'll generally be on smaller ranges. And so what we see a lot of is people will go in and to like further, let's say, capitalize on those trades, they'll apply leverage. Now, I'm going to tell you the first way to getting wrecked is trading 15-minute candles with high leverage. If you don't know what you're doing, don't fucking do it. Just saying that again. If you don't know what you're doing, don't fucking do it. You see people win.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, just don't do it. Just sit and do that one thing that I've told you in this fucking conversation. Practice your patience. It sounds so stupid. This is not degen of us at all. And this is maybe a wildly different recommendation than Mode has. But you guys can tell whenever Mode's in here talking through his method of trading, I'll chime in and be like, hey, the inverse of that is don't do it. You'll find what works for you, and Thor will help you get there. So we've covered most of the terminology that I want to cover in how, trading 101.